Hey everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's Middle East update. It's April 9th. We're going to look back on a crazy week, right? Who knows? Well, this behind me is our PDF PowerPoint. It's available to you on the YouTube site. Just click it and you'll have all of the notes, all the articles without my head in the way. So let's jump in. We always start with our news bites. The Board of Peace, remember that? The Board of Peace is confronting a harsh reality, and I think I've chosen this as foundational for our thinking of what in the heck is going on, not just in Gaza, but of course with Iran and Hezbollah as well. So the Board of Peace is confronting this harsh reality. Hamas, like Iran, is not motivated by deadlines, by incentives, by promises of reconstruction. It is motivated by, you gotta hear this, ideology. And it's motivated by jihad, by war. It's so important that we understand that despite whatever measures we try to go through, there still is the root of a legacy of hate that will, I'm going to go ahead and say it, will never go away. This is what's going to lead to the end and to the return of Jesus. That's my opinion, okay? So, keep that in mind as we hear so much information, misinformation, disinformation in a world that's now going crazy in social media and so many media outlets. Who are you going to believe? We must hit the pause button from time to time, get back into the Word, make it our foundation. Find those that we can trust, but still in listening, make sure that we always bring it before the Lord. Because here's the bottom line. Jesus was not caught off guard. I don't mean this as a cop-out in any way, but I do believe that Jesus knows the end from the beginning. He knows how all of this is going to wrap up. And he is totally in command of the events of our day. It's not like I can understand them always. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. But I do know this. He is in control. And that's where I get my shalom from and my peace. Okay. Step off that soapbox. Gaza ceasefire. Remember Gaza? That ceasefire's on the brink as Hamas is supposed to disarm. That deadline is to expire tonight. Everything that I'm reading saying Hamas is in so many words saying, we ain't gonna do it. Are you crazy? Again, not motivated by deadlines, incentives, or promises of, hey, we're going to reconstruct. No. Jihad, hatred, and ideology. So we'll have to wait and see. What's the Board of Peace going to do? Now, in light of this Trump ceasefire, President Trump, and I hope you hear me in this because I struggled with this. President Trump had the power to cripple Iran's entire economy in minutes. Okay, military might has taken out, and you name it, ballistic missile factories, Air Force, Navy, etc. What's left are the things like desalination, electricity, water, power plants. Trump could have done it. And that's that whole back to the Stone Age mentality. But in his mercy, he chose not to do it. So we're in the midst of this ceasefire. So keep this in mind. Iran, the end game here, Iran is certainly not about to become a Jeffersonian sort of democracy, but it is certainly not at this time an imminent existential threat. We may wish for more, but let's not kid ourselves. This has been a huge win, and we should be grateful. With that being said, there's always the other flip side of the coin. A 2-week ceasefire between Washington and Tehran is not a peace agreement. It's a pause, simply a pause under tension. The region is not stabilizing. There are those that are saying it's recalibrating, rearming. And as for Israel, the central question right now in Israel is really not focused on Iran. It's whether this ceasefire is going to require them to back away from taking Hezbollah out in the north. That's the conflict that Israel is mostly concerned about right now. So those are our news bites. And that conflict that I'm just talking about, we'll get to it in a second, but I think it's called Eternal Darkness, the names of some of these operations, genius or whatever. But our next article is called Iranian Strategy. And just so you know, tried and true, okay? And it doesn't matter who you talk to, people in the Middle East, our friends in Israel, many of our seasoned politicians are simply going to say the strategy of Iran is simply this. It's the most consistent. All they want to do is outlast, outmaneuver, and outwait. At this particular time, they don't care if all they need to do is to get to the next administration. Yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, or whatever. We won't do that. And when's Trump out of office? Who's going to come in next? We'll just wait. So the Islamic Republic today is weakened, but it's not neutralized. It's isolated, but it's not contained. It's challenged, but it's still operational. Its fate will not be decided by a single stroke, a single negotiation, or a single ceasefire. Now listen up. It will be determined by a convergence of 3 forces. Internal fracture within the regime. Will the people of Iran rise up and overthrow this regime? 2, sustained pressure from an increasingly disillusioned society, again from within, and the willingness of external actors such as us to move beyond ambiguity towards a defined and enforceable strategy. That's the only thing that will bring about monumental change. Not existential change. Remember, I said, this is a deep legacy of hate which will not just go away. And then this operation that just took place yesterday, at the start of the ceasefire, Israel launched a new operation that they code-named Eternal Darkness. And they struck, this is amazing to think about, they struck 100 Hezbollah targets in less than 10 minutes. Now, of course, it's going to draw condemnations from who? Lebanon, the French, British governments. But according to the Israeli military, the wave of these strikes was the largest since the current round of fighting. They hit over 100 headquarters, military arrays, command and control centers in Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, and southern Lebanon. Now, according to I-24 News in Israel, citing the IDF forces, the opening sorties, again, 10 minutes, to eternal darkness was no less successful than the whole beeper operation. So I'll end with this. A new capability, they're saying, they're not going to say what it is, made it possible to locate Hezbollah's alternative headquarters and strike directly at command levels. The result, widespread damage to the core of Hezbollah's command and control. It was a surprise blow as the opening strike of the operation, even before the war, it adapted after Hezbollah changed the whole deployment concept and again, blew them out of the water, literally. Shocking. But it's Israel. Lebanon. Because of this eternal darkness, just this morning, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu, in light of Lebanon's repeated requests to they want to begin direct negotiations with Israel. Lebanon. Bibi instructed the cabinet yesterday to open direct negotiations with Lebanon as soon as possible. And here's what they want to discuss. This is the negotiations. They will focus on, listen, the complete disarmament of Hezbollah and the establishment of peaceful relationships between Israel and Lebanon. And then Bibi said he appreciates the call that was made today by the Prime Minister of Lebanon, especially in terms of demilitarizing Beirut. That's really the hotbed of Hezbollah. And then a couple things before we're done today. Israeli youth. Recent surveys have revealed a surprising shift in the political preferences and values of young Israeli voters, indicating a strong Zionist alignment. So that pendulum has swung from centrist or from the left dramatically to the right. So 56% are now of the youth are more in lines with the Zionist alignment. Among the younger Israelis, 22% describe themselves as center-right, and only 14%, compared to, in years past, up to 27%, identifying with center-left or the left wing. So interesting to see that shift. And then prayers. In our old-fashioned Bible study, this is one thing that we do and that we are asking others to do, is to just commit to daily prayer. Daily prayer. We just read in our Psalms today, Psalm 122, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And so I'm just asking, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for people that you know, Israeli friends that are under bombardment and sirens and whatever. You know, I read this about because we do from time to time, we're able to serve on some of the bases, IDF bases in Israel. We have friends in the Golani Brigade, one of the commanders, and it's always an honor to serve and bless them in whatever way we can. But I read this and I thought, you know, I want to kind of wrap things up with this. There was a maneuver in Lebanon in 2024 called Arrows of the North. And one of the IDF captains, Eitan Oster, he led the Egaz force. And he stood at the point of fighting. Again, he fell in a daring battle on the slopes of this outpost. It was on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. But before he entered battle, he spoke with his brother and he said these words. He said, "A true fighter battles not because of the hatred for what stands before him, but because of his love for what stands behind him." Pray. Pray for Israelis. Pray for the IDF. And yes, pray for the innocent Iranians as well. Well, let me end this Passover week with maybe I can create a smile, I don't know. But I just saw this from the Babylon Bee, and I'll leave it with you. The U.S.-Iran war as covered by 10 different news outlets. And again, I'll move out of the way, but make sure you grab that PDF PowerPoint. You can read it, and hopefully it'll bring somewhat of a smile. But we do pray for the seriousness of all these things that are involved. And with that, bless you. And it's in the name of Yeshua and Jesus that we're praying for the peace of Israel, peace in the Middle East. Shalom.